Hello there, welcome to our show. Today I'm going to talk about Inglorious Basterds, or Bastards, Bastards, or whatever pretentious thing Tarantino's trying to do with this. Now this is a wonderful film apart from one major flaw, one really major flaw. And that's the ending. And that's a really horrible flaw. This is like a film that is going so high and then goes at the end. Now Tarantino films for me tend to end badly. I always feel like his worst parts are usually at the end. I mean, there's a couple of films that don't do that. Like Jackie Brown has a very satisfying ending. Very anticlimactic in a way, but I think it's very satisfying. And I kind of like the ending of Kill Bill 2. But even then, it's kind of conventional. I think that's the big problem, is Tarantino's trying to do lots of interesting stuff, and then he gets to the end and he has to try and give us some ending that satisfies. And I think he falls into the thing of he's tried to be hip for so long, but then he goes for the conventional endings a lot of time, even though it doesn't seem like a conventional ending sometimes. It's trying to be ironic or something, but to me it's always the dullest part of the film. Like Reservoir Dogs, everything's going really well, and then the ending they just shoot each other, and then like Mr. Orange confesses to Mr. White that he's the policeman, which is really stupid. And I don't think they set it up so that I think I've already complained with that one. And a lot of his films feels even like Kill Bill 2, it's getting to Bill and then just killing him, and it's like, well, I was hoping for something more. They do try and complicate it, but to me, it always felt there was something missing there that would have made it more interesting. Like they never found that extra engine, and that's what I feel with a lot of his films, like Django Unchained, which I'm going to get to in a couple of weeks, has the last 25 minutes, which I rant like crazy about. I did like the end of his other western, the Hateful Eight, because I liked that one better, even though there was. I mean, it's not a film I'll probably get to. There was some problems with the plotting of the ending, but I liked it. It was a bit more nihilistic and twisted. But a lot of time he actually does go for the crowd pleasing ending, because he can't really face having a darker ending to make people think and make people leave the cinema disturbed by what they've seen. They have to leave thinking, whoa, she got revenge, or whoa, they took that guy, and in this case, whoa, they ended the war a year early, even though they didn't. You know, it's a complete insult to what actually happened, because they're about to go into a year of utter hell, and apparently some genre convention means that a bunch of hillbillies could stop the war by blowing a few people up. You know, even though a lot of Germans have been trying to do that for a whole year and had failed. I mean, there's various Operation Valkyrie stories, there's tons of other stories. I mean, Valkyrie's was the one that's been filmed quite a few times. There was a film of it made at the same time as this. And there's other plots that happened and they all failed. No, this one succeeds because it's Americans. It's like, and there's the whole thing about a cinema saving us or something, which is just ridiculous. But we'll get to that. But we'll go to the good stuff first, because I don't want to just say, oh, it's all terrible. No, it gets terrible towards the end. It's not all terrible. In fact, the first 2 hours is terrific. Basically, it's a World War II movie where we're looking from different perspectives, as Tarantino likes to do, and he weaves together these characters in interesting ways. So you never, even though it's based on it's an anthology film for a while, there's like a 20-minute section of each character introduced the first hour and a half. They're all interesting, and you're really interested to see what happens with them. That it doesn't matter. So you've got it starts off with Hans Lander, called the Jew Hunter, played by Christopher Waltz, and is basically this star-making performance, and he is the best thing in the film. He goes to a farm in France. He's trying to hunt down the Jews who are hiding, and he knows that they're hiding here, and he manipulates the farmer to give them up without even lifting that, without any overt threats, he manages to find a way to do that. And it's a terrific sequence. It's a wonderfully done scene. It's also got some humour in it. Tarantino's very good at mixing humour and darkness. It really, for the first 2 hours of most of his films, that works really well, which always makes his endings much worse when he goes sentimental. And it's very threatening, and it's a very casual conversation. He's using lots of little nuggets of habits that you know and you recognise. Because Tarantino's very good at people's habits and scenes that we can all attach ourselves to. Because I've said that, everyone's said that, and he knows the pleasure of certain habitual scenes that connects us. He's very good at that. He understands that. He understands how people talk rather than what being smart ass all the time. He understands how dialogue works with people talking and how the nuances and manipulations that happen. And that's why there's always subtext to his dialogue. But sometimes not as subtextual as he thinks. But it varies film to film. But this one has some really terrific stuff there. Then we go to the Bastards, who are Brad Pitt leads them, and they're all these Jewish soldiers who are sitting behind enemy lines in a very kind of contrived thing before D-Day is going to happen to cause havoc. It's basically a suicide mission sent in with a lunatic in charge of it. They have a German-speaking Jew who can translate for them, but most of the time they're attacking German troops, scalping them, and for whoever survives, they put a Nazi signal on their forehead so they can't leave after the war's over. And that's as deep as it gets for how to deal with the Holocaust, unfortunately. It's genre conceits. It's taking it back to the time of the Indians being massacred and what they did, and it's like, that's the fallback, that's the problem with the film generally, is the genre conceits. Because World War II is full of genre conceits, and Tarantino was definitely paying homage to them. And that would be fine if he didn't blow the ending. It would have been fine if he actually acknowledged our view of the war is tinged by cinema and tinged by narratives. And I think that's what he tried to get at, but because it blows the ending, it gets infected with the stupidity of what he does there. So he sets all this up, all the Bastards. It shows you how they released Stiglitz, who was a German guy killing German officers because he hated them. And he shows you how they terrorise the Germans, how they use a lot of psychological manipulation, how they're pretty brutal, how they interrogate people and find the troop movements, how Hitler hates them. And it's all very much like a boy's own story, like you'd read about the war after the war. It pretty much is like a 60s war movie. You know, you can imagine Clint Eastwood playing Alder Ray in the past. It's that thing, it's that fantasy of the American individualists going up against the horrible people and destroying them from within, and they have a tragic past, blah blah blah, but they're going to win, damn it, because they're American. It's that thing, they're setting it up, but they're also having fun with it, and it's really enjoyable. If you like those old movies, it's really enjoyable. You can't deny it. It's part of the mythology of that era, and it's perfectly good to take that and have fun with it if you actually do something interesting with it, which is the problem. Because the Bastards remain one note throughout. They do not change. Everything that you find in the beginning with them gets elaborated on as it goes, but it's never deepened. It's always just the same level of this genre conceit. We're playing around with it. We're having a lot of fun with it. But you don't really find out more about them. You find out little bits and bobs, and nothing major. You just find out they're more determined you'd ever think. And they'll keep going. And it is kind of like the little Terminators, you know, going through the war. That's what they are. But they're kind of like supporting characters of their own film. Which is fine, because I like that something in the film, where the title characters aren't actually the main characters. And all the other characters are more interesting. But they dominate the narrative so much that it becomes a thing where they need to either add something towards them in the third act, or find a really interesting twist with them, and it doesn't. It finds a stupid twist with them, which isn't the same thing as a clever twist. Then we go back to Shoshona, who escaped from the initial scene, and this is my favourite part of the film. It's all about a woman who's a Jew in France. She's hiding out in France. She's dyed her hair blonde so the Germans don't suspect she's Jewish, because she doesn't look too Jewish, so she can get away with it. She's changed her identity. She works in a cinema now, which she now owns because the people who used to run it died. And there's a German officer who's a hero of the war is smitten with her, and he's basically stalking her. And it's played by Daniel Bruhl, who's a very charming actor and who's a very good actor. And Melanie Laurent plays Shona, and she's terrific too. And those two are really terrific. They really ground the film. They do a lot for the film. A lot more than some of the higher range actors who are more famous, but they're the ones who actually have to kind of carry a lot of it. And it's great because he is a stalker, but he is charming, he is naive, and he isn't particularly comfortable with what his accomplishment is. It's there's a sense that he's uncomfortable a little bit, but he's also trying to burn himself up to the command in case they win the war, and so he's got a life after the war. And he is kind of a believer in some ways, but not. You don't even get the feeling he's a true believer. He's just a German in the army in a war, but he's got a chance to suddenly go higher than he ever expected. So there's a sense that in different circumstances he may have been okay, but it's just he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was too good a soldier. So that's the way it goes. So that's the kind of complexity you get in this one, and you're getting through this to showing a thing of he's kind of stalking her, and he's bringing her into the higher commands of the Germans who don't know she's Jewish, and it means she runs into Hans Lauder again, the guy who killed her parents, and he's clueless too to who she really is, and they want to use her cinema to premiere their great new propaganda film. And the film's really focused on German propaganda films and German cinema of the 20s onwards to the 40s, which is something I'm really interested in. If you look at my old videos, there's a video about the German cinema of that period, or a film about a film on looked at that, and it's. I'll leave a link for that video, by the way, at the bottom. So that's really interesting. Tarantino's fascinated by that, and that's what makes the ending more annoying, because he knows how manipulated the whole thing is. He discusses how manipulative the whole thing is, how the Germans are creating this, like, alternate Hollywood to filter people into thinking they're winning and all the rest of it. This is happening now during the D-Days of they've landed on the beach, and now people are starting to get worried that the Allies have landed. So for a propaganda thing, this is where history goes completely out the window. Hitler's going to attend this premiere in Paris in this little cinema. It's going to be a event only for the Germans. So the bastards find out about this, are told about it. Michael Fassbender is sent to help them, take out the Germans. And it's now leading to this event. This is the bit that kills the film, because they're going towards everyone. I mean, the film's been out for a decade, so I can talk about it. At least the thing is, they're going to kill Hitler, and they succeed. There's lots of films about killing Hitler that fail, and you can't really do a killing Hitler film and have it win, because we know how Hitler died. He's one of the most famous deaths around. And it sets itself into this cul-de-sac. Like, it's so interested in all this thing about German cinema that the only place it can go is an assassination attempt on Hitler. But everyone knows it didn't happen. But they have to change history to make it happen. And that's insulting. But I'll go back to that. You have to wait a bit more for the rant. But you see the bastards go through all the things and go through all the, like, getting Fassbender in, which is, that's not off screen, but you get the implication. He's the expert in German cinema. They're going to meet up with this German actress who's also working for them, and she's going to get them into the premiere, and they're going to plant bombs and blow up Hitler. They're going to kill Hitler. and it's all about that. And that leads to one of the best scenes in the film. It's the scene everyone agrees on as being a really good scene. It's the scene in the tavern. They're underground pretty much because the tavern's just below. You have to go down steps to get to it. And it should be a quiet place with no one there. But fortunately, a German soldier has just become a father and the heinous pals are celebrating there. And there's an SS officer who's with them. And they just walk into hell and they have to try and act as if they're just normal Germans. And Fassbinder's got a weird accent to them because he's British, really, but he can speak German. And he's in there with the actress and the two speaking German bastards, and they're trying to get out, and nothing's working. And it's a really great sequence because it shows you how treacherous being a spy is in anywhere, but especially in Nazi Germany. We've got all these fascists who have all these weird delusions about what they're doing. They're part of an authoritarian structure, and it showed you how the resistance worked and how brave it is to go and do all this stuff, because you can easily get caught. Any story you have could be found out, because Fassbinder gets caught out with something so simple, something he doesn't know that's actually very a cultural thing that you wouldn't know. So it's like you can caught out so easily in this thing, and it's all about those little details and building and building and building. And as things go slowly out of control and all hell breaks loose, and it brings the whole thing down. And it's a really terrific sequence. It really is, really well done. It's a tense sequence. Everyone loves this sequence. It's what's really good about the first 2/3 of the film is there's lots of details about how the people survive in various different things. So a lot of the best stuff is like either Shona in France dealing with the Nazis and hoping not to get caught, and the suspense of all that, or these soldiers in this tavern and the suspense of that. That's what gets missed in the last third of the film, where they finally go into full-on fantasy mode that obliterates all the good stuff they built. It just does. It just obliterates it. Yeah, the final section is the thing that always bugs me. This is what really gets on my nerves with the film. I have been forgiving of it in the past, but I've been watching lots of films about the war in the last year or two, and I find this film more harder to take the more I know about, more and more details of the war. But if you've looked at Shoah and looked at all this other stuff, this fantasy thing looks really pathetic. Because basically they kill Hitler and end the war. And the whole thing is this whole suspense stuff of them, the bastards in this cinema for this big premiere. And Landa figures out what happened at the tavern, so he figures out the bastards are there. And he captures half of them and says, "I'll let you go through your mission, I'll have through your mission if I get what I want." Which happens, and he ends up getting this thing in his forehead against his will, obviously. But that's just a thing to give a path. Like, oh, we ended the war. Oh, this is a alternate reality. That completely insults everything that happened, because the whole film has been showing you how horrific it is for the Jews, and how they have to hide, and how difficult it is to win this war, and how horrible the Nazis are, but they are very human and pathetic in their own way, but they are very nasty people. And they even indulge in the fantasy of the war and the narratives that go around it with the bastards. But you can't actually have them win the war, because there's another year of the war going on. A horrific year where they have to go through Eastern Europe, where all sorts of horrible things happened. They had to take Berlin, had to go because the Germans fought to the end. This says, oh, we killed the leaders and they collapsed and that's it. And all is done. All because of a movie fantasy. And it's well done, all this stuff's well done, it's shot well, but it becomes like a revenge movie, like an exploitation movie. And it's immoral. It's completely immoral. It ignores the reality and tries to replace it with something that's just facetious. It's just terrible. And there is an argument, oh, this works because it's expressing the anger of the Jews against the Nazis. I don't buy it. It's just an exploitation movie trope. You know, that's it. That's all it is. It's Tarantino's done this in the past as well. He did it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he changed the ending of the Manson murders of Sharon Tate, which worked better because this is just a story about Hollywood, the self-indulgent Hollywood actors made by self-indulgent Hollywood people. Ultimately, it's a small change. It's a once upon a time story. Doesn't matter. And there's been lots of fantasies made about the Western, Civil War, all the rest of it, that have been completely facetious. And as we've gone on, we've looked at them going, you can't really get away with that. That's just, you know, that's a printing a legend thing. And that's a John Ford thing, printing a legend. And Tarantino says he was on hating John Ford for all this, skipping the racism involved and all the rest of it. But he does the same here. He does the same a lot. He's so terrified of actually having his audience leave thinking, like, I'll show you all this stuff, all this complicated stuff for the first 2 thirds of the film, but then I'll go to the exploitation stuff for the final third. Like, once put in Hollywood, it shows you the problems of all these actors, and then he shows you the end. They succeed through violence. Django Unchained just goes to pure exploitation violence. Hateful Eight, same thing. It's just violence upon violence upon violence, and it's an end, but there's never any invention. It's just, I've set up all these problems, I don't know how to end it, I'll end it in violence. Or I'll end it in fantasy. If you want a real resistance movie, you know, look at Melville. Look what he did with Army of Shadows. That's a real resistance movie. If you want a resistance movie with a touch of glamour, look at Black Book, Paul Verhoeven's film, or Soldier of Orange. Those films, despite having a bit of glamour, showed you how horrible it was and how difficult it was and how there was a lot of nuances, but they don't cop out the way this film cops out. This film is a total sellout. It just sells out entirely. If you know anything about the war, this is a sellout. If you like this ending, it means you don't want to think too much. It's a terrible ending. It doesn't mean anything. It just means I want to make sure you can leave the cinema and not think too much. Think, oh, everything worked out fine. We're in a movie, it's only a movie. All this stuff happens in a movie, and cinema can solve anything. Well, it can't. Cinema is used, and this film shows it, cinema is used by propagandists to create a myth that's very destructive to people. And it suggests that all the way through, and then it just goes to the myth of, oh yeah, we'll go to an exploitation movie. That myth will purge all our fears. It doesn't. Any really good film about the war shows you how nothing can be solved. All there is the trauma and trying to survive what happened. That's one of the good wars that are still utterly traumatic. I mean, watch this and watch the show and you'll see how facetious it actually is. So that's my rant over about Inglorious Basterds. Great first 2 thirds, final third just tanks the whole movie. I just think Tarantino needed to grow up, and he didn't grow up, really. And there's a lot of nuances and sophistications in his films, but he keeps blowing at the ending. He just keeps on being a child at the ending of his films. So that's my ending. I don't want to repeat myself constantly here, so I'll just stop now. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back soon.